You're gonna have a fun editing job today, Motherload.
It'll be fun. I'm just gonna pretend like I edited it and not do anything.
Hey, works for me. Okay. Let's get started. Welcome to the roundtable discussion about the final. Okay, I'm gonna restart because that sounds like shit.
We are the Doom Gods of the Round Table.
Oh my god!
All of this is staying in. All of this is staying in.
Sure, whatever. That's fine. All right. Let's get started. Welcome to the roundtable discussion. We're going to be recapping the Take the Crown Doom 2 Duel tournament that finished up last weekend. It was 5 weeks of intense action, 4 qualifiers that led to the finals bracket with a grand prize of $1,500. We have a very distinguished panel of people sitting with me here. Everyone from streamers to players. Let's go around the room. We've got Devastation, Dew, Xenaero, and TheMotherload. How's it going?
So I always think it's interesting when we do these, like, we name off everyone's names and then we don't actually have them say anything. So, like, to someone who didn't know who all of us are as a requisite, they have no idea which one of us is speaking until like 30 minutes into the conversation. They're like, which voice is which? So I'm Motherload, and this is Xenaero.
Hello, I'm Xenaero, player.
And
it's me.
This is Devastation.
Hey, this is Dev.
And if you guys listen to Doom is Dead, you already know Bones and Dew. So fuck you.
This is why we have you here, so that you can correct me on a recording, and then it goes out to the world and everyone laughs at me.
I do the same thing. It's just funny.
It is. So we had 16 players that made it through the qualifiers and qualified for the finals bracket. We covered this in our qualifier recap, but just so that we can set the stage a little bit, the players that had qualified, let's take a look here. In qualifier 1, Denzoa, Langrenus, Animal, and Amar qualified. Qualifier 2 was Disparel, Ghost Killer, J Warrior, Prote. Qualifier 3, Dante, Zakin, The Best Killer, and Cypher. Qualifier 4, Devastation, Ty, Dastin, and Legion. So, if we open up the bracket here, it was seeded based on... Well, actually, let's talk about the seeding a little bit, because we had to go back and take a look at all the qualifiers very, very closely to seed this. It wasn't like rocket science. We had some switches in between, like I would say probably seeds 5 through 12. There were some jumping ahead based on a particular player's performance in a previous qualifier. So the final was seeded based on that. Obviously, the first 4 winners of the qualifier number 1, Denzoa, Langrenus, Animal, and Amar, were seeded 1 through 4. And then we had some mixing up there because we had some players.
I would just interject. Yeah, we spent a lot of time just thinking about how we would actually see the finals, because there were like a lot of things going in. Do we actually just prefer people who won the first qualifier as the strongest qualifier, or do we seed in like someone only plays in the third qualifier as their first game and beats everyone? They would obviously go among the top seeds. And we were like racking our brains how this would work. But in the end, this didn't happen. This didn't happen at all. Like, we had a very clear path how to seed people, because we could always like trace everything to the people that won out the first qualifier eventually like beat everyone else. It just worked that way that we could seed it very easily.
Yeah, I think it seeded pretty good for you there, dear, where you didn't come up against those situations. And as a player, after the qualifier 4 was done, the next day I actually went and I looked at all of the people to make my own bracket so I could estimate in advance. And I believe my bracket was identical to what you guys eventually came up to.
Yeah, like there might have been like very minor, switching around based on just ordering it, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in the order of the qualifiers. We did change a few of them, because we felt like, some guys qualified after some shaky, in their own tournament, they qualified after some shaky performance. So we were like adjusting a tiny bit in regards to that, but otherwise, it was very straightforward. Luckily for us.
And it showed clearly through a lot of the games that we were casting where, say we followed Animal for a while, and all the games we watched were really close. Like if you look at the round history where someone goes 2-0, on the surface, it looks like, they won decisively, but that never ended up being the case. A lot of games were very close.
I think that was the exciting thing about this tournament. I think if you took the exact same 16 players and ran this tournament multiple times, you'd have different winners and different lineups almost every time. I think a lot of the absolute top players were very close to each other, and the games were extremely exciting because of that.
Yeah, maybe except for the winner, Denzoa, who just seemed to steamroll everyone. He seemed to be on a different level in the finals. But everyone else...
He played very well in the finals, for sure. But, I mean, I think Lang gave him some trouble still. And he still had some close games along the way.
Sure. Well, I think J Warrior was the first one who started giving him trouble. He steamrolled Legion, Dante, and Amar. And that was actually he performed really, really strongly against Amar. There was 50-26 on Idea and 50-32 on Pyrrhic. So that was a show of strength. So Langrenos was actually the one we kind of cheered for to give him trouble, because it looked like a clear stomping for Denzoa. So finally someone showed up in the finals.
Yeah, and I think when you take a look at these brackets, just before even playing, the matchups were so even. So we had Denzoa and Legion, Prote, Dante, I like that, Disparel and Cypher, Dev and Amar, Animal and Ty, Zakin and Ghost Killer, J Warrior, the Best Killer, and Dastin and Lang. And I think, just from before any of the games got played, we were not sure where the games were going to go. And the cool thing about seeding them beforehand is that you can say, we would circle certain matchups on the board and say, okay, we want to stream this. Okay, we want to stream this. And I think we did. All credit to the players, but I think we also did a good job of figuring out which games were going to be the most exciting, and the players lived up to that. These matches were really let's take Dev and Amar's first round matchup, for example, since you're here, Dev. So you guys, you mentioned earlier off stream that you picked Idea as your home field. Was that just a map that you felt like played more to your skill set, or was that just something that maybe you picked up along the way? How did you kind of get yourself comfortable on that map?
So, as a player that has a lot of history and a lot of people can research things about me, people are going to be dropping maps they believe that I'm good at. So if I look at this map pool, a lot of people would immediately assume Dev's an old player, Dweller's an old map, and they would remove it. And that played well for me in the qualifiers, because I actually hate Dweller. I absolutely hate the map. I can play it if I absolutely have to and can focus for a while, but I hate the map. So I wouldn't choose to practice a map like that. So when I knew about the tournament, I decided to practice a new map that I felt very comfortable with. But by putting a lot of practice into a single or two of the new maps, people would be somewhat surprised about my ability to play those maps. So Idea kind of struck me very well. And the thing I enjoyed about it is that there was some hallway play. So my movement and the way I'm able to cut corners just kind of played a little bit more to my style. And the map can be played fast or can be played slow, where I can speed up and slow down a map where not everyone can do that. I just felt like I would have the most advantage of being able to study that map, play that map a lot, and just get good at that map. And it's one that people wouldn't have assumed, looking at this map pool, would be one of my strong maps, I felt. I thought everyone would assume King 1 and Dweller, and maybe Mu 2D because people have seen me play Mu 2D in the past a lot. So,
would you say that like the map maybe evolved throughout the tournament? Because you say that the map has hallways, and you're like you feel strongly about playing in hallways because of the movement. But in the actual games, we've seen very little actual play in the hallways because that's not where the frags happen. Like you want to be outside and making the SG frags, even if you have to like go SG versus SG because you don't want the opponent to grab the BFG. So it's kind of like it was a very fast map. I felt in the end. Like
it's definitely a fast map. There's not much room to slow it down. I felt like Amar was able to try to slow it down against me quite a bit by using some of the hallway plays. It's not that the hallways are intuitively a slow game. Yes, all the action, all the spawn frags are out in the main arena, but the deking that you can do in and out of the hallways is where you can use the hallways. So that's where someone who has very good movement can take advantage of that and play much faster from the hallways, where someone with poorer movement can't move around the hallways as much.
So not necessarily like cutting corners and that sort of stuff, but timing shots by deking in and out.
Yeah, I still say you would cut corners. I mean, if you go back and look at some of my games, I would cut corners in and out, and I'd be looping around with people, and they didn't think I could get behind them that fast.
Okay.
Well, the hallway emphasis would work on a map that is a lot like Doom 2 Map 1, where your hallway is your only route in or out. That's not the case on Idea. And Idea was the most picked map in round 1. But I think it's not entirely accurate to say that weapon control was the biggest factor. As Doom Duel has evolved over the years, we saw a lot more players taking control of areas. They were valuing positioning more than guarding weapon pickups per se. So I think putting emphasis on the hallway in a map like Idea, where it's very open-ended on the hallways, it really didn't help you that much in your first round.
Yeah, I think the hallways played more of a role when both players had all of the weapons, or both had the shotguns. You'd usually have one person on the ledge, one person kind of running around the other side of the hallway sort of thing.
Well, and that was one of the things that I mentioned on stream every time that we would play that map, was I felt like the older players would relate more to Idea because it played a lot like, Dwango 5 Map 1 or Doom 2 Map 1, where, you're just basically playing in hallways, and that's kind of like, for a lot of players, that's your first real experience in a competitive Doom environment where you actually kind of learn what your opponent is thinking and how to decipher that whole thing. So that's why I felt like that was the map that you preferred the most. So I don't know if you remember that game, but Amar ended up taking it on you, and that was kind of surprising, I thought, because I know you put so much emphasis on it, but you were able to go to uptight DM map 8 and take it 50 to 45, and so then it became kind of anyone's game. You had a pretty sizable lead after that. I speculated that you were really pissed off, and so that contributed to like taking a 10 frag lead. I don't know if you remember that game very much, but
yeah, no, I definitely remember the game. Idea was very close between me and Armor, and that's kind of what I expected. He's very fast reactions and very good aim, and I think we were equal in frags up to frag 38 or 39. It was extremely close, and I think he got a few good spawn frags, and I made one or two mistakes near the end that cost me, and the game ended, I think, 50 to 44. And when we went to Uptight TN, that was another map I practiced a lot with Animal, and I played there with Armor before and Denzoa. So I kind of knew how Armor was going to play that map, and I was very pleased with how I was able to. I didn't expect to have a lead that big on him. I think he had some unlucky spawns, and I made a few good shots at the beginning of that game. I think my lead was plus 16 at one point against him, and then I started to slow down a bit. But yeah, I was a bit angry, but I knew what I needed to do in Uptight DM against him as well. So it wasn't. It was more around I knew what to do in both maps, and it wasn't that I was angry, but I was definitely focused by that point, and I made some good shots and got some lucky spawns.
I think it really shows the how good the map pool was, because Uptight DM, while it appears on the surface to be a pretty open map, there are a lot of narrow angles to take. Like, you don't have wide open areas like you would have in Idea, King 1, Mu 2D. And I think that played a lot towards Devastation's style, because he's used to. That's why he emphasizes hallway play, and that's why some players play well on maps like that, but are less efficient on maps with open-ended, like slugfest play. So I think that Uptight DM was a map that he would have taken, because he's a lot more accustomed to very narrow attack angles. It's interesting to see that come out in the map pool, because we saw a lot of different maps get picked by a bunch of different matchups.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the map pool for this tournament, actually. It was a really good mixture of old and new maps, and it was a good mixture of fast and slow maps, and there was kind of something there for everybody. So I really enjoyed the map pool. One of the things that was very interesting when you actually think about Uptight DM, even Idea, definitely Saskatoon, and there's probably another one I'm missing, but it really emphasized chain gun and regular shotgun play. So if you knew to just stick with those guns and play back, you could get some advantages from people.
Oh yeah, there was a lot of shotgun and chain gun play. It was well, we knew what we were getting into, but I was really surprised that actually people stuck with basically all of the maps, and you've seen throughout the entire tournament, through all of the qualifiers and the finals, basically you never knew what people were going to ban. Like in some tournaments, like if you have a top league with all of the best players and you get the classic maps, you can almost perfectly predict what people will ban. It will be pretty much given. Like, yeah, this guy is good at that map, and I hate this map and that map. So that leaves us with just 3. In this one, it was so many surprise picks.
I think some of that comes down to the fact that, these aren't maps that we've practiced and played for years. So thinking about these maps, okay, yeah, King 1, Dweller, sure. But I mean, Dweller is not really played in many major tournaments. Even
Dweller fell out of
then.
favor years ago.
Yeah. I mean, King 1 is the only one, and I guess maybe Mu 2D that's like really there. But I think with a lot of the newer maps like Uptight DM and Idea, when you start putting this in the hands of, the best players in the world, different players are going to practice different maps based on what they see other players play. Sure. And they're almost going to pick their home maps. So I think that's why you're getting a lot of variance. But if we had, if we play the same map pool for the next 4 years, I think the same thing would happen as what you're describing. You just know what people are going to ban.
Sure. I mean, what I expected was that people would constantly ban Dweller. I didn't expect Dweller to be played at all, honestly. I just thought that people would just ban it. And
I feel like
I was surprised how much Dweller was played. And how some people from like Zendronum, from the Zendronum dueling school, would pick actually Dweller, because I that was surprising to me, and they played very well on it.
So this is kind of funny. So up until an hour before the tournament, I was under the assumption that Armor completely hated Dweller, and so I was expecting him to ban it. And I had this whole thing worked out of who was going to ban which maps and what to bring it down to and what I was comfortable with. Because I had joined a server at one time when he was apparently joking with someone that, he hates Dweller and this and that. And only an hour before the tournament was I talking with someone and found out that it's like one of his favorite maps. And I had to go back and change my whole pick style of what map I was willing to play him in.
I think it's interesting that a lot of the impression I got watching a lot of players practice, especially for the final bracket, let alone the qualifiers, players have advanced to the point where they don't shy away from the maps that require finesse. Like, we've almost capped out at how people aim. Like, pretty much everyone can aim at this point. Now it's more of a game of fundamental. And I think that players don't shy away from maps the way they used to during like our heyday, because they're able to adapt on the spot a lot more fluidly than we were. And I think that really showed, especially in the final bracket, because you look at all the different map choices. I mean, every player pretty much played every single map, and that's not something we saw like not long ago.
Well, and there was a methodology behind the map picks. I mean, it started off with, okay, we want to pick one map from every era of mapping and multiplayer Doom. And we tried to stay true to that, but really the idea was, okay, if you have 7 maps, we want 4 of them to be new, because we don't want to see players just stick to Mu2D and Dweller and King. We were just assuming, like Dew said, we were just assuming that, you know, they would stick to what they knew and not necessarily favor the newer maps, and that was not the case at all. So we had, you know, with Idea, Saskatoon, Pyrrhic, and Uptight, you know, in a pick ban system, you're always going to have to play a new map, which we really like the idea of emphasizing that, because, I mean, you know, the whole idea behind this tournament was to sort of celebrate the release of Doom Eternal. And I mean, we're going to continue doing something like this in the future, but yeah, we really wanted to emphasize, you know, your ability to take a map that hasn't been played for the past 15, 20 years and excel on that as well. So I was really pleased to see everyone kind of embracing the new maps, and everyone, like you said, Xenaero, not shying away from playing things that might otherwise make them uncomfortable. I thought it was really cool in that aspect.
Did you set out to gather a set of maps that could be played with alternate play styles, but also threw that wild card in there with the pick ban system, so that there always was that threat of a map that they didn't have practice?
Yes. So Dime and I started way back in September. We started talking about maps and what maps we wanted to play, and we started dueling on all these different kind of maps. And we would try to, you know, we'd put maps together, and we were trying to figure out like how the flow of maps went. Like, we didn't want to put 5 maps that had the same play style. We didn't want to put 5 maps that came from the same mapper or the same era of play style. So it was a challenge. I mean, and I know that when the tournament was initially announced, there were a few people that said, you know, well, there are way better maps than this. And I mean, I think that's really subjective. Like, you know, I love Dweller, Dev hates Dweller, for example. I don't think that someone's opinion makes a map good or bad, but I think it's about recognizing when you have a collection of 7 maps, you know, how do they play when you...
It's not a matter of high strength maps. It's a matter of having a compact working map pool. Right.
And that all flow with each other, and, you know, you want to be able to challenge the players. I mean, especially when you put money on the line, you don't want to make it a walk-in like, okay, let's play Dwango 5 map 1. I guess, you know, Badfish is going to win this tournament. I mean, you know, you want to make it challenging for everybody involved, not just the old, not just the new. So I thought that Dime did a really good job of trying to, you know, he came with the initial idea of doing this. So I really embraced that, I think. And I'm glad to see that everyone else did too, because I thought it made this tournament better than just your typical let's duel to, you know, $50 on Doom 2 map 1.
Yeah, for sure. And I thought the map pool went really well because of the varying styles. I think it'd be kind of a cool idea to almost have a mapping contest, and, you know, you get like 40 maps or whatever, and then you play them a bunch or get a playtest group and kind of say, oh, here, this one's a fast one or this and this, and you kind of detail all the challenges and then pick a map pool from something like that.
Dev, that's called 32 and 24.
I think I want to hear what Motherload thinks about like the map pool. He's not a Doom player like the rest of us. We played this for a bazillion years, but I want to see what an outsider perspective was on this tournament.
Yeah. So I was eventually gonna let you guys talk your heads off and then jump in here with this idea. But so I received the information on the tournament, and then I read the map list, and I just want to be very clear here. Before I read that list, here's all of the maps I knew in multiplayer Doom? Judas. That's it. And and if you actually go back and watch the video footage of us like casting the tournament, you'll notice day one I come in, I'm like, I refer to maps as this map, or and now we're moving toward and I'm reading, and then the map, and then throughout the day I get a little more comfortable, and then by the end of the tournament I'm like, we're going back to Mu 2D. Like I really it kind of took the time to embrace it over the course of the tournament. So this was a really interesting thing for me. I had no concept of what were the old maps, what were the new maps, who's an expert at which maps or anything like that. I kind of caught on through conversation throughout the time, but I wasn't sitting around asking a whole lot of questions. And I found it really interesting as an outsider to just watch the whole thing happen organically. To me, it felt seamless. It felt like there was no argument whatsoever about the maps. I didn't it felt weird that Saskatoon didn't seem to come up in conversation as much as any other map seemed to. I really liked the way they played. I think you guys were talking a bit earlier about how these maps seem to require a different weapon choice than what we're used to in Doom, which typically is just run through with the SSG and move on. And that's in any outsider's perspective about Doom 2 is going to always be that. At least at first. And as I watched this tournament, I think the top best players at what we ended up with in the finals bracket were the people who prioritized the super, not the super shotgun, but the regular shotgun. We saw Langrenus by far just mowed people down with that thing and picked the long shots, and the map pool really spoke to, I think, a different style than what we're used to seeing in general. One of the ways that I like to think about tournaments of any kind, especially esports tournaments, I've tried to compare them in my mind to that classic Jean-Claude Van Damme, late 80s, early 90s martial arts tournament, Bloodsport type movie. And this was one of those situations where we saw people come from a lot of different camps. So we saw people from different countries all around the world who come from different source ports even. We saw, Dev, you can speak all you want on this later on if you feel like it, but this is a tournament, a martial arts tournament, and then with rules, or in this case what we picked Xandronum as a source port. So some players are coming to this tournament with really they've got it down 100%, and then we have other players that are coming to this tournament where it's they are experts in this field of martial arts, but the rule set is different. You can't kick the foot, or the gravity is shifted slightly, one way or the other, or everything's moved over slightly to the left for them. And it was so interesting to watch that happen throughout the entire course of the tournament with everybody. And I think what we ultimately ended up with was people who were the winner of the tournament, Denzoa, not a specialist as far as I can tell. We didn't end up with any people, like you said, that are a specialist of this map, or the best aimer, or pick your thing that makes someone a good player of any game. We ended up with best all around Doom players in the final bracket, and I think that is the goal that you guys set out to accomplish, and what we ended up getting in general.
That's pretty well said. I think that's actually the future of any sort of competition in the community. With it being a varied map set, it's going to be focused on fundamentals. Maybe not so centered on a source port, on any particular source port, even though I think what you touched on was pretty interesting to watch. A lot of players came in who were not used to the quirks of a source port, which is pretty much only, it's a very relative to Doom and not so much anything else.
Yeah, this is actually, I would, at this point, I should mention Dante.
And Cypher.
Dante and Cypher, the two Russian guys who dropped in. They aren't entirely they are actually familiar with Doom. They are sort of old school the demon players around, but not really they weren't actually in any sort of public knowledge. They weren't competing in any old school tournaments in the past. They aren't names of the legend, but they've been around for a long time. They have experience with Quake, with Doom, and all sorts of that. So they decided to sign up for these tournaments, and they started practicing. And they got pretty much whipped out of the first qualifier. Then they actually, both of them qualified in the third one, right? That was like the surge. Like they were improving from the first to the second to the third. In the third one, Dante actually won, and both of them moved to the finals. And in the finals, these two guys, seemingly out of nowhere, they became such a threat that some people even were like chirping about cheating or whatever. And it was just like Dante, he went against Prote in the first round, and that was a very close game. Actually, that was 2 versus 1, and it was like 50 to 40, 44 to 50, and 50 to 41. So like it was basically close enough that either could have gone for forward. And Dante then went against Denzoa, got dropped down, and then he went all the way to the pre-finals of the loser bracket against Langrenus. So he ended up being number 4 and managed to grab a prize, a monetary prize. So that was probably the biggest surprise of the entire tournament, because the other 3 people who won out were sort of expected, or not such a big surprise. But Dante, that was like, he was improving, like game to game. You could just see him being more brazen, more just in your face and dominating in the maps. That was a sort of like what Madlo was saying about picking the maps as he went along. It almost felt like, that's what Dante was doing, like feeling out his opponents, feeling out how the maps play in real time.
Dante was a player that we actually watched on our stream, me and the rest of like the older Unidoom crew, and we just happened to wander into one of his loser bracket games while we were following Animal. We were waiting for his next games. We were kind of following Animal for a while, and dude, like when we got to Dante, we were like, oh my god, I can't believe how well he's playing. He's adapting on the spot to everything people were throwing at him. Like, it's hard to single out a single player in a bracket like this, but as far as hype was concerned, watching Dante was a real treat and should be a player to be watched in the future for sure.
Yeah, and he had some like again, especially against Animal. Like Animal is a player who use all sorts of weaponry, especially on maps like Saskatoon, where you have like a choice of weapons and you can pick your fights. And Dante actually, like he over the course of that game, he sort of like matched the style and started showing up with his own insane predictive rockets. Like just the rocket spam that was almost like trademark for Animal throughout the tournament. All of a sudden, Dante was doing it as well to Animal.
I think it would be, I that is something also to touch on with Animal and gameplay. I didn't see any other player use rockets on close quarters maps like Mu2D as effectively as Animal did. He was zoning them out. He was limiting their movement of options. It was pretty crazy to watch. And then, like you said, Dante came in like, all right, you want to be a Renaissance man with the weapons? I'm with you on that. It was really interesting to watch. And that will probably be the future of Doom duel competition. Like it's not anymore centered on only super shotgun gameplay. Not even close.
I find it kind of funny that everyone always thinks the Doom is centered on super shotgun play, but remember the original game up until even early 2000s was balanced on way more weapons than just the super shotgun. It's mostly the newer maps that have always made it focused around the super shotgun. But map 1 was all of the maps. Even when people used to play map 11 in the 90s, it was different weapons as well.
And of course,
It
you
is
have
coming back.
And you have Judas as the master map of everything, which is all of the weapons. All of the weapons have their spot on Judas.
Yeah, Judas is another extremely good example where every weapon is useful. But I think Zen is right that the rockets are being used in slightly different ways nowadays.
I'm going to provoke Devastation a little bit on this. I think that using map 1 and Judas 23 as examples of weaponry variation is misleading. You're forced to use those weapons in those situations, but by and large, you're using a super shotgun when you can get to it. On these maps,
On Judas, you
hold on, let me
spawn with
finish.
the weapon. You spawn with the weapon. Yeah,
Right.
I know what you mean.
You're forced in that situation. On these maps, where you have all these options at your disposal, there are options where they have the super shotgun, but they're playing for a different position. They're playing for some kind of advantage depending on what's unfolding in the map. And they're using all the weapons at their disposal. They're not trying to control the whole map with a super shotgun. And that's
right.
like
that's like map
that's
1. That's exactly what you just described is exactly map 1. You use every single weapon in every single situation. Your whole goal in map 1 is to get every weapon so you can then have full options in every situation.
That's not what I'm talking about.
But in Judas, you have a point.
No. I get Zen's meaning here, because Zen is talking that both of the players have like options at their disposal. Like the players choose to engage in this sort of style. On map 1, only one player has a choice of weapon.
No, that's not true at all. You get many situations in map 1. I played map 1 3 times today for the first time in 10 years.
Dude,
it's the first time I've had situations where both players were using rockets and plasma and BFG and super shotgun in the situations.
No. Hear me out. You only get this standoff situation where both players can use weapon of their choice if the player who's not in map control spawns on the ledge. Otherwise, he has no choice at all.
There are
you have to agree with that. Come on.
Well, no, I won't. And here's the reason why. Here's the reason why. I see what you're saying. So when someone spawns on the ledge and the person in control, that is a situation where both players have the weapons they require minus the plasma at their disposal. But for example, if I spawn in the hallway, grab chain gun, grab BFG, then play around to go and get the rocket and the shotgun, I now have that weaponry, and a person can be pushed back to the plasma. Will you let me finish?
But you don't get that chance. If with a good player, you
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
You have to frag the other guy. You have to frag the other guy.
No, you don't.
Girls,
no, you
girls,
don't.
Girls. I will personally, at a later time, we can set the date. I will moderate the great debate.
This would be fun to
debate.
Do.
Okay.
Well, just stop and let me finish before you interject. I will give you a chance to talk and interject, but let me finish before you interject. Are we clear?
Dude, as the highest authority on map 1 in the entire Doom community
is me.
I ran the best tournament ever.
Is me.
On map 1.
Excuse
I ran the tournament.
Is me.
With the best players. You didn't participate, by the way. I know what I'm talking about.
No, you don't know what you're talking about at all.
All right.
I know what you're saying. One sec. I know what you're saying, but I'm telling you, dude. There are situations where the BFG and chain gun person can force the other person back to plasma. There are situations that exist where both players have all of the weapons at their disposal.
But it's not.
We will Anderson Cooper this on a different day. But let's finish talking about the tournament.
What I wanted to do was lead it into where there are, I believe, 3 phases of how 1v1 has progressed. You have the phase like with map 1, that early phase before a lot of standardized maps came out. Pre-standardized, sure, whatever. Where a lot of the weapon placement, a lot of the weapon use, the tactics was more forced than being able to pick weapons for your situation. Your second phase was the years like when we had the ZDDL and all, like, and Z-Damon was at its peak, where you pretty much had super shotgun centric maps, and that's pretty much all people played. Super shotgun, BFG, that was pretty much it, and it was very aggressive play, very domination play, related play, and now we're in a kind of a third phase where players are very cautiously positioning themselves around the map, playing corners, playing a lot more conservative or aggressive, depending on the situation with whatever weapons they have, but they're picking weapons for these engagements. They're not always going super shotgun. And like we saw that on a lot, like King 1, like how varied that play is. If you compare that play from today to play during ZDDL, it's drastically different how players are positioning themselves and how they're using all the positions around the map in different ways. It's not, everyone drops down to in front of the rocket launcher and duels with super shotguns at dawn. It's not that anymore.
Well, King 1 was always great in Europe, but that's a discussion for another day. But I would like to say that there's actually a sort of like a progression that Doom in the late 2000s and the 2010s, there's been also a lot of like inspiration by Quake design, new school mapping with jumping, with fast weapon switching. And this is actually where a lot of this mindset started seeping in, picking the weapon of choice because you had the choice. You hadn't had to think 3 seconds in advance how to change your weapon because you could do it instantly. So that's where it started. Like we had new school maps and we could try out the Quake style. And then it started seeping back into the old school design, which is the Saskatoon and the newer maps, the Pyrrhic. That's already like mapping with this knowledge kind of like seep through the feedback process. So it's already designed in.
Yeah, I think we've kind of come back to the way Doom was a little bit more, almost like a renaissance of what it used to be in some ways. I think there was almost like a down period, where, as you say, it was mostly super shotgun BFG oriented. And I think some of it was map design, where a lot of maps, because players didn't want to get stuck on walls. They didn't like having to, practice for hours to have good movement. And the wider a map becomes, the more it becomes dominated with an SSG. When you take a map like Saskatoon, it has these tight edges, these tight hallways. The other weapons become more viable, especially rocket launcher. The tighter the area, the more viable rocket launcher can be.
So we've reached the level where people no more ask for shoot wad tournaments.
Yeah, exactly.
We've transcended.
That second phase where pretty much everyone was an SSG pro and games were decided purely off aim and spawn control. We had that. We had shoot.wad, we had D5M1, we had D5M7. And now that everyone's aim is pretty much relatively equal, we're advancing into finesse. And that's
somewhat. I think that's slightly oversimplified. D5M1, you can play multiple different styles.
Okay, but you know what I mean. Like that. Yeah, the majority of your engagements in D5M1 were out in the open. They weren't hallway.
Have you ever played JCast?
I'm taking extremists out of the equation here. We're talking about phases in general.
No, you're right. The general population, it was mostly about who could out-aim better in the center. And same with D5M7. And I think Duel will agree with me. D5M7 at the highest levels really comes down to movement.
Oh, yeah. D5M7 is not about aim at the top level. It's definitely about escaping from when you spawn with a shitty position. So that's when the skill comes down. Like you have to SR50 out.
And just to touch on Zen's point from earlier, it's because at the top level in D5M7, we're all aim pros. So once you have that equal, what is the small differentiator? It's the movement.
Yeah, the tipping point is finesse. Yes.
Yeah, the finesse aspect there. So everyone is good at aiming at every map right now. So now everyone's trying to find these little tiny things. And
So
getting
it's more
back
like-
to what we said about the map pool, I think the maps were really good, and Uptight DM had those small corners, like Zen said. King 1 evolved. I felt the King 1 almost even evolved a little bit in this tournament, how it was played from the Qualifier 1 till the end. I think people started to settle in.
Yeah, I think at the beginning there was a little bit more focus on the BFG, and by the finals it was more about. I mean, it was definitely BFG. There was BFG centric, but I think there was more usage of the inside areas and kind of trying to lure people either in or out of there, and less about like, okay, let me just grab the BFG and spam every spawn that I could find. But if we wanted to circle back to what you were saying about Dante, he, of the 4 people that actually ended up winning a prize, I would say that he was the most surprising person, I guess, that we could have picked to win. So, but if you look at his trajectory, like in every qualifier that he was in, he got bounced down to the losers bracket and had to fight his way up, and that includes the one that he actually won. So in qualifier 3, he went all the way through the losers bracket just to come back and win. And
Like
same
5
with the
rounds in the loser bracket.
same with the finals. The finals, he won one game in the main bracket, lost the second one, had to go all the way through just to place 4th. So, I think that was kind of what we were hoping for, but we weren't sure that we would see, which is players that had to come and adapt. And we can get into a port conversation if you want, but players that had to adapt someplace that they weren't necessarily comfortable in playing and they weren't really used to, and you saw that perfectly demonstrated in Dante's progress from qualifier 1 all the way through to the finals. As he, he would play all of his opponents, he would learn their tendencies, he would kind of pick up on that, and I think he became a lot more comfortable with the port with Xandronum as it went along as well. So, there was some thought process behind the source port that we were going to use. Xandronum was the pick that was made because it was thought to be the place that you could attract the most amount of players to the event. And, everyone has their reasonings for wanting to play something else. But I thought, all the work that went into the custom HUD, all the work that went into making sure that, it was the custom HUD was streamer friendly and people were able to get used to the port. I think people actually put the time in to practice, and, that's got to be something said for that.
Let me expand on this because you mentioned it. So people who don't know, we picked Xandronum obviously because it's the most commonly known port. It's
For Mega Man! Sorry.
Oh my goodness.
The one that's basically everyone knows it. So sure. We picked it mostly for accessibility. So then we started running into some issues with the port, which was most on the nose was the fact that it didn't have any support for spectators, which is critical for actually streaming the games. So what we had to do was actually load all of the game servers with an extra wad that was sending extra information collected by the server to the clients, so we could get stuff like player health, player ammo, and other special graphic options for frag difference and stuff like that. We
had to actually categorize every stat into an array by the server and beam it to the client through this script. That's how we had to circumvent the port.
Yeah, because the port just it doesn't want you to know stuff because of ghosting, which is a third-party player telling someone, your opponent is standing over there and has that much health, holds this weapon.
And yet there's no server-side variable to disable that behavior.
Yes,
so
it's forced. And it completely cripples streaming. So we had to completely circumvent that with our own WOD that would, give us all the information back. And that was a painful process in the first week.
For people who are listening who don't know Doom, who don't even really know why we're talking about this, a lot the multiple Doom source ports, Xenaero, Odomex, and Xandronum, unlike Quake inherited ports, all three ports inherit different versions of the original source code from their parent ZDoom, and as a result, there are different developmental quirks and behaviors that oftentimes organizations like the MDF have to dance around to try to find a happy medium for their players.
This exists in the Quake community as well. In particular, we could make the comparison between NetQuake and Quake World, where we could even go further and say like Warfork versus like Cocaine Diesel or Warsow. I think that's a pretty common issue that a lot of people are going to pretty easily be able to kind of grasp onto. Like the debate comes in like, why is it such a big goddamn deal which one we play, that kind of thing, which is, it really gets down to the splitting hairs between cutting edge experts on the game. It's like, you guys have that problem. The vast majority of people are happy to play on Xandronum and have no preference. The only issue I had with Xandronum was just the spectator tools. It's like, as a streamer, that's a big problem. I can't believe that Jahar has gone so long not making a stink about that when he's doing all these different events.
Oh yeah, this was definitely like we put the effort in because you were bitching about it so much, and it was like, yep. It's an issue. Like, we picked a port because it's the most accessible one, but it's showing its age. Like, Xandronum is definitely getting rusty in some aspects, and this is one of them. And it's just been like, what do we do about this? Like, holy shit! And we got, of course, there's no way we could get a custom build on a short notice, so we had to circumvent it with this entire really complex extra WOD stuff. And it's just, in some ways you always run into the ancient nature of Doom. Just it wasn't prepared for these situations until someone needs it, and then it's too late, of course.
I think we could do a whole other podcast. I think a psychologist, like a social psychologist, could do an entire dissertation on exactly why shit's so fucked up the way it is right now. And I think we'll do another podcast where I lay out my theory and hypothesis in a row on why it is the way it is. But all things considered, I think that you guys made the right choice for this time, and it worked out. And the event happened almost seamlessly.
Now we learn from it.
Well,
for the future.
I didn't bring it up intending to create a conversation where we, put one port down and one the other, but I just wanted to bring it up as kind of like a larger philosophical perspective that I have on trying to get people involved in the community, because I know that, and again, totally other podcasts that we could talk for 20, 30 minutes on this, but the idea behind the MDF, Multiplayer Doom Federation, was to repopulate, in a sense.
We need multiple players.
Yeah. to repopulate the community and get people playing again. And so, personal preferences aside, I think it's obvious that more people play Xandronum than anywhere. So, my thing is this: like, you start with a home base, okay, and then you get people playing, you get people interested in what you're doing, and you get them involved, and so on and so on. When something is successful, then you branch out, and you do actually convince people to play things that they otherwise would not have played. And we've seen that with our other events, and so I think that for me was part of why, like, I was okay with us. I mean, we had to make a choice, right? But people have mentioned that, okay, Odomex was used in QuakeCon. It was used in QuakeCon twice, actually. And, I mean, I just think we had to make a choice, and that's the way that I look at it. I've found a lot of success in getting people, to be a part of the community first, and then you move slowly into the other areas. And we've seen some cross port play from players. So I was happy with that, and I think now that we have this tournament under our belt, we've gone through all the hard stuff, all the really hard stuff, I think, is behind us. If we wanted to do it again, I see no reason why we couldn't branch out and use, for example, Otomex, or we couldn't go out and run one on Xenaero. So, I think I guess I'm really happy with even people that don't like Xandronum, and when I say don't like, I mean seethingly so, they just can't stand it. Even they participated just to be part of the event, and that's what I'm talking about. So I was really happy with that part of it.
I think
it was great.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and it was great. The event was amazing, and one of the things I did want to touch into on this, but I don't know, Zen, do you have a point to make right on this before I sidestep us?
Yeah, directly related to that. I think when the choice was made to use Xandronum, it was the right choice at the time, because at the moment, when this idea had been formed, we were before the YouTuber Decino running events on Otomex, before a big surge in Otomex's developmental history, and now, for what it's worth, Xandronum was a great choice. We were able to get the streaming working. Wasn't a whole bunch of problems that we've had with Xenaero in the past, for example, like no crashes on map 04. Little in reference for veterans there. But I think that with Xandronum's mission statement was always been about compatibility with multiplayer mods and that sort of thing. And that's just something that's going to branch out as we run particular events that will require that support. There was some clamoring from more competitive players for Otomex, and that's something we'll look at in the future too, and that's something I'm working on. But go ahead, Dev.
I was just going to say this event was great for a number of reasons, not just the organization, that it ran so smooth and so amazing. And I think the organizers did a really good job at handling things on the fly when situations did come up, as Dew mentioned about the spectator thing. But it went off just amazingly. But it brought together...
Maybe we faked it out in public.
Well, you know what? That's the same with running any event. You always think it looks worse as the organizer because you're dealing with everything. But to the audience and to the to the players, as a player, I didn't see much of this at all. And I thought it was extremely well run and well organized. And you might have been having near heart attacks in behind the scene, but from the audience perspective and the player's perspective, this was it ran amazing. But it brought together
in the first qualifier. I have to tell you that that was absolutely horrifying. All the shit that happened throughout the first qualifier, servers crashing or restarting, and people getting booted out. The DDoS.
But even those things, it created small inconveniences that clearly were out of your hands. But you guys responded to that within 15 minutes and had the crashes fixed? That is amazing. There are tournaments that would have been put on hold for hours with a different team of people.
And I have to say, I have to thank Hobo Masters, Xenaero, Aguares?
Yeah, Aguares.
Let's go with that.
Yeah.
Everyone was really on top of their game, really quickly responding to our needs. Hobo Master actually created a new WOD with fixing the script that was crashing, restarting the server on the fly. So we restarted all of the server on the fly during the tournament within 20 minutes. I was hyperventilating throughout the entire process, but eventually it worked out. But it was super stressing.
Yeah, so the stuff that you guys dealt with and how you responded was absolutely amazing. I didn't even feel that Qualifier 1 was that delayed as a player. So, good job on the organization. But what it did is it brought together a ton of top talent and competitive players that has not been together in a very, 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 very long time. And, you had these 4 tournaments, the 4 qualifiers plus the final bracket. And then you've got all these good players playing like practice matches against each other. So, I mean, Animal was one of my main practice partners. I played practice games with Denzoa and J Warrior and Armor. Like, I think I played almost nightly with Animal and Armor as well as, going out with and playing with Hobo Master here and there. So, but what it did after the tournament too is it created that excitement that, Duel's alive again. Like, I just played a game with Serge. Serge was watching the TTC, I believe, and he reached out to me, and we played some map 1 games today. I've already talked to Armor saying, you know what, let's continue practicing, playing some Xandronum here and there. And me and Animal are going to go practice the other ports as well. So now you've brought together the people that, you're now going to see public servers with Dev and Animal again, or Armor and stuff again, that you haven't really seen in a Duel server in public setting in a very long time.
Well, I think I actually thought about this the other day. It's like a new generation of players. Like a lot of us who we played till our eyeballs exploded in ZDDL, IDL, WDL, like whatever.
Many times did the
we
eyeballs
know,
explode.
and that's yeah. And now we've done it enough to where we know how to run an event and what players want to see from an event. But now there's all this excitement is really cool for players who weren't a part of that during that time frame. People like, Dante, people like, Animal was around, but like in the thick of it now, you know what I mean? So I think it's really cool to see sort of us taking a more administrative role and now running these events and seeing the talent of today go for it.
Well, that's why I reject this. Just look at the name of this podcast. I mean, Doom is dead. I reject that. I reject the fact that, we have to do the same things over and over again. I mean, I know that there's a very small group of people in the past that have been in the organizing world. There's probably a handful of them. And I think the only way to get us playing is to actually create an environment where anyone can organize anything. And like you said, there's a whole new generation of people that I never met. I mean, people like 15 to 18-year-olds that obviously were not around 15 years ago. So I just think it's really cool, and I think we're starting to see a lot of that. So hopefully, I think that was part of KingDime's goal. Hopefully we were able to help keep things going for, I don't know what the shelf life is that we gave it. Maybe we gave it another 3 months, but hopefully we kept it alive a little longer.
Well, let's take a moment to just kind of address what our goal was, and let's see if we reached said goal. So Dime had an idea, I want to do a tournament. Okay. And then our statement, or the mission statement from the get-go, as I understood it, was we're celebrating the release of a new Doom game. We're going to have a big multi-week long blah, blah, blah. The end result here is everything that we just said, plus, and this was something that for whatever reason was not accomplished by QuakeCon, or in fact, let's call it DoomCon 2019. It blows my mind that this didn't get accomplished, but we now have hours upon hours of high level, high production value, state of the art Doom esports with a $sign attached to it out there for the world to see. Like anybody who actually goes and searches for this game, hey, do people still play Doom? We now have so much proof of that, and we have it presented in a light that it's digestible to a new audience. So if the goal was to attract new people, to the multiplayer Doom Federation, or just to the multiplayer Doom scene, period, we have so much commercial out there for that now. And I'm really proud to say that I was invited to be a part of that in any way, because I feel like I feel like a complete fish out of water hanging out with you guys or being involved in this at all. It's really cool.
Well,
I think go ahead.
No, go.
I think it's really valuable to get insight from the Quake community too, because there's a lot of overlap now that we did not used to have. There was no one from the Quake side that would interact with Doom during what I would call its peak, when we had servers full of duelers, taking turns. But now we have people like Prote, Disco Ryan, more names that I can't remember off the top of my head that I've played in Quake franchise and Quake-like games. And they're over here now. They're playing. They're having fun. But it's really important to us to, I think, get that outside perspective too.
Yeah.
Because, otherwise it ends up being an echo chamber that we've fallen victim to as a collective community before.
That's an interesting point because
Yeah.
I think you're right there where some of the Quake players are coming in looking at Doom. In the past, there's only been one Quake player that I've known that's really played Doom, but it's because they played Doom before they were a Quake professional.
Right, and they're an out. Yeah, I know who but that's like an exception to the point.
Yeah, who do you think I'm talking about?
Thresh, because I know he played.
No, I'm talking about Socrates.
Oh,
yeah,
Socrates.
Socrates. I mean, he was up there. Jason Socrates Silka. I think he was mostly in Quake 4. He'd won a lot of money, but he still came back and he dueled me in D5M1. I'm gonna say mid 2000s to late 2000s.
He wasn't around that long, though. I mean, well, then again, Thresh wasn't either from the early outset. But yeah, I understand what you mean.
What I'm saying, he went and played Quake at a high level, won money playing Quake, but still came back and played a bit of Doom. Thresh would have been the opposite. He played Doom, Quake came out, he never played Doom again, and then he moved along. But now, as you said, there's these players that are in Quake that are coming and interacting with the Doom community who were not Doom players in the 90s. Whereas before, the players who came back were only players who used to play Doom to begin with.
Well, it's important to make the distinction that we now have a pretty established community compared to then, too.
Yeah. We also need to, I think, address the fact that, there are people who have actively worked on this. This is not out of, what an amazing thing that we've, over the past year, just ended up here. Nationwide Moose has been working on this like it's his child. He's raised this whole, let's not have let's not have an argument about it. Let's coexist and everyone communicate and have an open dialogue about it in his Discord server for this entire time. And I think that's also been true of the Keep to an extent. And it's been, I would say at this point, it's on the conversation that Bones and I had well over a year ago now, whenever it was. So whenever you and I had our initial interview on In the Keep, and I got curious about Doom, and we talked about my first question was why don't you guys not have scoreboards, or and it blossomed from there. And then we had this council meeting of QuakeCon 2019 was everybody who had these ideas were, if they weren't physically there, were being represented by someone there, where we got to really put together our ideas and spend time together and actually try to understand what do we need? What are our goals here? And it was just this beautiful meeting of the minds. It might as well have been the fucking Geneva Convention, of Doom and Quake and everything, of esports, of this, particular genre. And here we are sitting here in March 2020 and it's happening. It's not necessarily, is it, or have we reached our goal yet? No. Are we well on our way? Do we have an established route to success? I think if we keep doing what we're doing, we're going to end up where we want to be.
Well, I think the key for me was to almost, I guess you could use the word partner up with you in the Keep and also Moose in the US Quake community, by having channels in all the Discords and sharing a lot of the same player base. I mean, people in all three Discords play all the same games. I mean, I just think it was something that we weren't really afforded 10 years ago. So we've been able to almost build like double our player base in a sense, that way. And to have all these people working together. I mean, a lot of the people that were involved in Take the Crown were from In the Keep, or they were from, some other community. And they saw what was going on and wanted to get involved. And so it's kind of created this entire esports thing where it's not even just about Doom. It's just about hey, we want to make sure that, something like this that's cool actually happens, and we make it, we contribute to make it cooler. So there's definitely a lot of that going on.
Yes.
There was actually sort of I was searching around for feedback for the tournaments, and there was actually sort of Russian pride thing going on for Dante and Cypher. Like, yeah, like we didn't even know that Doom is still a thing, but now these Russian guys are kicking ass. Look at them. This is so cool.
It's kind of like the Lance Armstrong effect, where no one really cares about bike racing, but then when we have it, like an American is the best bike racer, everybody like rallied behind him, and he was like a celebrity.
That was probably not the best example.
Yeah, and then he got disowned entirely, and
No, he didn't. Everybody still loves Lance. I don't care if he doped him up. He was on. He told Oprah and Joe Rogan he's clear. We forgive him.
Well, here's the thing, right? Like, okay, the guy did what he did, but he, out of his success, he created this movement to donate money towards cancer research, and now everybody completely, you know, I'm not wearing my Live Strong band. It's like, okay, what are we favoring more here? Are we favoring like let's contribute to the cancer research, right? I mean, that's got to be the bottom line. This is a totally off track conversation, but
I'm sorry I brought it up.
Anyway,
when are we going to start selling our own landfill bracelets?
Well,
MDF bracelets.
There you go.
I will wear an MDF bracelet. I'll wear an MDF T-shirt to QuakeCon.
Oh my god, I know you.
Who's been silently in the background? I've multiple times in the middle of the night, like early morning when I know he's asleep, messaged HumanBones. When are you going to get that merch store up? When am I going to be able to order my MDF T-shirt? I'll do it myself if I can collect the revenue. I can do it in like 5 minutes. I'll just have the store up, running, your logo on a shirt, and start selling it right now.
Well, here, let's sign a contract right now. Do it.
Okay.
Can I put my face on a T-shirt, then buy the T-shirt and wear a T-shirt of my face on it?
You're banned.
Only if you wear it to QuakeCon.
I will wear a QuakeCon shirt.
I know.
Of my
I know
face
you will.
On me.
I know you will.
Good.
And I'll have your face on the back.
Yeah, but
okay, let's not get weird.
MDF and Devastation face. Like
we're supposed to attract people here, not keep them away. Anyway.
Right. Anything else about the tournament?
I just wanted to say, I don't even think I mentioned this, but so the final results in terms of the players that won money, Denzoa took first place. He won $750. Langrenus won second place, $450. Jay Warrior took $225 in third. And of course, Dante, who we've been celebrating, he came in fourth. He won $75. So congratulations to those players. I think they played their asses off. They really made for a fun tournament. And, you know, thank you to, like I've said probably a million times, but I'm going to do it anyway. Like all the streamers from Jahar to Motherload, Xenaero, KingDime. I mean, everybody that was involved in creating all the artwork, involved in putting the servers up. I mean, it was a team effort. So, you know, I got hats off to everyone. Like it would not have happened without them. So, you know, when and if more towards the when we decide to do this again, I'm definitely going to be relying on people. But you know, I'm optimistic that we will be able to do this just as smoothly next time. So I just want to say thank you to everybody.
Oh, let me just, now that you've mentioned the 4 winners, I would say that. So how I rate that is that Denzoa, he walked through everything. Like, yeah, Langrenus gave him hell in the final. That was actually when things went serious. But most of the time, Denzoa was really dominant.
He did not lose a single match, correct?
He did not lose a single map before the grand final.
Ooh-wee.
He just 2-0'd his entire way into the grand final, where he dropped 2 against Langrenus, I think.
He didn't lose a map before that? Wow.
Yeah. And actually, in the grand final, he was having some connection issues, which I think led to his.
But let's be honest, Langrenus was playing better on Duel.
Sure, not to take anything away from Lang.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, problems started happening, but Langrenus was, I believe, in the lead before the issues happened, and Langrenus seemed like in the zone. So I will give that map to Langrenus, even with the issues that Denzoa eventually had. Then Langrenus came in second, and he was the second seed, and he was expected to just walk into the final as strongly as Denzoa. But he got dropped in the second round by J Warrior in 2-1 result. And yep. And it was actually in round one in Mu2D, that was 50-49 to J Warrior. So that was super close. But then Langrenus kicked into a higher gear and just started eliminating everyone with just no mercy in the loser bracket. He just went on a tear. He got really pissed off.
He played J Warrior again in a final losers bracket round. Did they play Mu2D in that? I don't have the record up.
The bracket doesn't say, but I think they did. And I think that Langrenus came back with a vengeance, because I think he won 2-0. Yeah, so Langrenus just went insane. That was his, the kick in the balls that made him Super Saiyan.
And I want to say that I think endurance also played a factor in that, because, I mean, I'm presuming Langrenus is a younger player compared to J Warrior.
I assume, yeah.
It's in tournaments like this where you have a long slog ahead of you, does matter.
But J Warrior, yeah, he was the black horse of the tournament. I was actually really looking forward to their first round of this matchup, because that was J Warrior versus the best killer, and that was a weird matchup where I actually wasn't sure who was going to move forward, and it was actually J Warrior won 2-0, but Dweller 2 came down to 50-48. The best killer is a really strong defensive player, and he could have really put J Warrior in a tight spot, but J Warrior pushed through, and then he took out Langrenus. So J Warrior really had to work for his money, and then he took out Animal in the semifinals. So talk about just walking through a really deadly field. So yeah, he was the only person who actually took money who didn't play in the first qualifier. He only played in the second one, and he came as number 3 in that one, which really hurt his seedings. But I pretty much, it's pretty much a fluke. He really showed everyone that his seeding was basically unfair, a mistake. So he was the wild card in the finals. And of course, Dante, we already were talking about his Cinderella story.
Yeah, Dante's kind of the fan favorite, but it is without question that in any future event, Denzoa is going to be the person everyone will be looking to beat, for sure.
Oh yeah, preparing especially against him.
And that's where player evolution happens.
So, I mean, I think that wraps up what was a really, really successful event. Does anybody have anything final they'd like to say before we close the book on our first Take the Crown tournament?
Yes. Doom is Dead t-shirts available on In the Keep's Redbubble store as of right now.
As a player, thank you to the organizers. It was very well run, very well appreciated. And thank you to the sponsors of the event.
Should we disclose them, Bones?
Sure. So, KingDime donated 500. Vertigo donated 500, and our very own Do donated 500. So it was a joint effort. It started off, actually, I think it started off at just 500. And then Vertigo reached out to me, and he said, hey, I'd really like to, donate some money here. And I said, well, I mean, I think that's awesome. So, then it went up to 1,000. And Dude said, what the hell, I'll donate some money too. So that I thought that was really cool that it really was going to be, an event sponsored solely by Dime, but people saw, what work he was trying to do, and they supported him. So that was cool. Thank you very much.
Another act of the community that really Doom has been built off of since the start.
All right. Well, that wraps up the Take the Crown Doom 2 Duel Tournament, sponsored by KingDime. I'd like to thank the roundtable here, Devastation, Dew, Xenaero, and TheMotherload. Hopefully we'll be joining you guys soon with another event. If you are interested in anything small or not for money, you can check out the Multiplayer Doom Federation Discord server, also doomfederation.com. You can find information on all of our events. And this has been another exciting, if not argumentative, episode of the Doom is Dead podcast. Thank you very much, and talk to you guys later.
I still love Dew. Dew and I still love each other. We just love to argue.
I love you guys. Good night.
Oh yeah, we will argue for 2 fucking hours, and we will kiss.
Yeah, I want to hear that one.
Let's not have the kiss.
That would be funny.
Bye.